So one of the most common yardsticks I see people using is good and bad. We're taught that from a young age. It's a lot of like societal pressures to view things that way. And it's one of the most toxic yardsticks I see people use because they often combine that with black and white thinking or perfectionism and that kind of thing. And a big part of what we're trying to do is to change that yardstick. Where places I hear good and bad often are this person's good or this person's bad. Another is people often talk about emotions as good and bad. They're like, oh, happy is good, sad is bad. And I see a lot of problems come up with that. People often will be like, oh, I want my kids to be happy, or I just want to be happy. We can't be happy all the time. You need to have different emotions that come in and different intensities of that emotion. And so a yardstick I try and help people use instead of good and bad is productive and unproductive. There's a time when happiness is productive, and there's a time when happiness is unproductive. Like if you're not really truly feeling happy inside and you're trying to like force that, it's not the most productive thing. Same with behaviors. Taking naps, right? Sometimes napping's unproductive. If you're napping too much or like you're doing that to escape certain things or you're just wanting to avoid, not the most productive. But say you've been at work a long time, or you need to take a nap for 20 minutes and you're going to show up better as a parent or a spouse or whatever, napping in that moment's productive. And so when we're looking at actions that people are making, I really try and take shame out of the equation, because shame spends very little time in being productive. Usually that's under the unproductive column. And to help people with that, it's like, okay, you could go do this behavior that might be fun for a moment, or like part of you wants to do that. You can go do that. But a way of getting out of that habit of doing that is viewing like, okay, is this productive or unproductive? Is yelling at my kids productive or unproductive? If my kid's running out in the middle of the road, I might yell to get their attention because it's needed in that moment, and that's productive. But if my kid spills some milk and I yell at them, that's unproductive. I see good and bad as very objective, where a lot of our actions are more subjective. And by viewing it as productive and unproductive, I see a reduction in shame, and ultimately people are able to connect with what I think is accurate of nothing's always good or always bad. There's movement in there. And when we have that movement in there, people can usually flow through life a lot easier.